Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Alder Hour, your favorite way to end your working day. So it's 8 p.m. in the UK, it's 9 p.m. in Europe, including Scandinavia and Norway. It's 3 p.m. on the East Coast, and it's midday on the West Coast. I'm Matt Alder, host of the Recruiting Future podcast, and this is this week's Alder Hour. So thank you very much for joining. I'm sure loads of you are watching this because there's nothing else to do at the moment, nothing else on the internet, nothing else distracting your attention. So please join in with the show, leave us your comments. We've got some great co-hosts, we've got a great guest, and lots of fantastic topics that we're going to be discussing. So just leave a message on the stream and we will try and acknowledge it and make you part of the show. So this show is part of the Purple Acorn Network. Head over to purpleacornnetwork.com if you want to find out more about Purple Acorn. You can also follow us on LinkedIn. And this episode and all Purple Acorn shows will be available as a podcast afterwards, wherever you get your podcasts. So without further ado, I would like to check in and bring my amazing co-host to the stage. Hey, how's everyone doing?
Hey.
Hello, Matt.
Hello, John, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
First time, yeah.
I'm glad to be here with both of you.
Excellent. And how have you been?
No, I'm great, right? Coming into this, I don't know about the two of you, but it's been fast and furious. I feel like coming into this year, lots of activity, lots of conversations, right? Just feels like things are starting to gain some momentum. So it's been a race coming into.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. And hi, Rhona, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. And same. Everything's been
Right?
so fast this year. It's like, whoa, we're almost at the end of January and it's so much has happened already.
Yes.
I know. Sense check, it is the 20th of January. We are 20 days into the new year. And it feels like 2 months already. So huge amount of things going on. So just a quick preview. What are you going to be talking about this afternoon? Rhona, what do you have for us? Give us a quick preview.
So I'm talking about body cameras for retail workers. And is that a thing that should be a thing or not? So that's what we'll talk about later.
Well, I can't wait for that one. John, what are you bringing us?
I don't know if I'm doing anything as interesting as that, but we are going to be talking about reporting structures, right? What do you do if the person you report to is the person you're supposed to go to if you have a complaint? What do you do?
Interesting stuff. So, really looking forward to hearing from both of you a bit later. Before we do, though, let's kick off the show with points and pints. So, if it's your first time watching, in this particular section of the show, I open a beer. Here is my beer for this week. This is a pint, except it's not a pint, but close enough. And we look at some headlines. Together, we look at some headlines that have been in the news. Now, this week's beer. Oh, there we go. Days Pale Ale, alcohol free as ever because I have to drive home. As regular viewers will know, and this beer is it's from Scotland, and it's actually created from water from the Lammermuir Hills. That if it was actually light outside, I could see outside the window. So this is rain that actually falls on me, and they've made it into beer. So let's see what it tastes like. Here we go. This is always a delicate operation. I feel you two should have a beer as well. This just feels very.
I mean,
it doesn't feel very inclusive. Yeah, no, absolutely. Right, here we go. I'm not as much a fan as the one last week. Actually, I don't know. Maybe it's the local water. It's okay, but. Yeah, it's not my favorite one. I've liked all the ones so far. Okay, on that note, let's move on to the first point, which is this headline from Bloomberg that Meta are going to be laying off 5% of their staff, which I think equates to about 3,600 people all over the world. There is a date for this in the US, but there are no dates for this in other countries, which, as we'll find out, could well be to do with various employment laws. Now, what's interesting about this is Mr. Zuckerberg has said that this is all down to performance. So they want to, well, I think it was called unregrettable attrition or something. I think there's a horrible word for it. And they want to kind of accelerate their performance cycle and get rid of X% of low performers. So nothing new in that. Tech companies have been doing that for a long time. What's interesting here, though, is why they've come out and been so blatant about announcing it. It just seems quite a strange thing to do. I don't know whether this is part of he's just getting all the bad news out in 1 week, considering some of the other things that have been going on at Meta, whether it's part of the masculine energy that he's reportedly said the company needs. But it does seem like a kind of a very strange move. And also I think that, with performance reviews and all these kind of things, the scope for bias is kind of huge. So I think there are lots of problematic things about this. Also, interestingly, they've not put dates in for other countries because, certainly in countries like the UK, there are far more laws and procedures that you'd have to follow to go through this kind of process. And you just kind of wonder what the motivation is for this. Is it about performance? Is it that it's a kind of a precursor to laying lots of people off because they think AI or other efficiencies could come into the picture? Is it because skills are changing very quickly and they want a way of kind of rotating their employee, their team of employees to have the most relevant skills? But it does just seem an odd kind of announcement. What do we think of this? What do you think of this?
I mean, I think if you know that 5% of your company is underperforming, and your solution is to like lay them off, because it shouldn't be called a layoff if it's truly performance based. That says more about you as a company than the employees, because what are you doing to either keep those or like upskill these underperformers or move them around? It's like so many questions when I read things like that. And just like you said, it's like, why are you announcing this? This is what companies do. If you don't perform, you don't get to keep your job. That's like a given. So why the announcement? I just think there's more to it than the performance, and we'll find out as it happens.
Yeah, and I mean, tough times for people who work there as well. This can't be very good from a morale perspective either. John, what do you think?
I mean, the revenue is down for Meta. I mean, that's just what it is. I think where some of this is born out of probably a social media adjustment in general. We're seeing traffic down on really all platforms right now, and you're going to have to adjust the workforce if your top line is down, right? But I agree. If it's really performance based, the idea of layoff seems to be the wrong term. I really think if you have reason to dismiss someone for work related underperformance, then just do that. To announce it as a layoff,
Yeah,
the wrong way to go.
And as a kind of a side issue, I noticed in the last couple of weeks, there's kind of been a big influx of HR professionals from Threads to Blue Sky.
Yes.
Kind of sort of, perhaps in a reaction to some of kind of Meta's policy announcements. So, yeah, interesting times in that company. And as I say, it can't be a particularly fun place to work at the moment. Definitely not. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next one. We're doing 3 of these tonight. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, this is the least surprising headline of the year. Shock horror. Employers face skills mismatch between job seekers and companies' needs. LinkedIn finds. So, not perhaps an entirely neutral source either. But yeah, so, skills are changing, jobs are changing. And, I think that there has to be a different way of thinking about this and a different way of kind of putting this, because this is going to happen forever. There is going to be a mismatch between what employers want and the skills that are out there, because we've had skill shortages for forever, but now with things evolving so quickly, it's always going to be the case. And I just think employers need to find other ways of talking about this, other ways of engaging about this, because I think upskilling and reskilling will be essential part of everyone's career for the rest of their career now. And I think we should talk about that more. And I think employers have a part to play in helping to develop the talent that they need. We can talk about, we have education systems that are built for the industrial age. We live in the digital age. So I think this is a huge, huge thing. And you just see lots of things like this as if it's a surprise, or if it's that they're blaming someone other than the fact that this is what the world is like now. So, I think employers need to be talking about this in a much more positive way, and talking about what they're doing to develop the talent of the future, either within their own companies or out in the marketplace. I mean, what's your take on this?
I mean, I read things like this and I think, isn't this how it's always been? Maybe because I've been stuck in tech my entire career, but this is how it works. You don't put something out there like a job ad and get a ton of people that match exactly every single thing that you need. So I know I've always been thinking outside of the box and focusing on core skills and then developing the people. Like that's how it's always been. I've also recruited in media and it's been the same thing. There's no perfect person that with all of the skills and the skills change in these industries. So maybe that's why my thought has been like, yeah, this is not surprising. This is how it works. And companies, like you said, need to start thinking and talking about talent development and focusing on core skills.
Absolutely. John, what's your view?
Yeah, I agree. I think that part of the problem here, though, is that we're assuming that employers know the skills that they need. And I think that's probably where some of this premise needs to be adjusted, right? So the idea of upskilling and reskilling to what? We've really got to help organizations understand what that looks like, because I know that there are organizations that have spent quite a bit of time and resources in upskilling or reskilling, as they've called it, and they've really given people these new skills that aren't as applicable as they had hoped they would be. So we've got to come back to step one and say, what is it that's really needed for what is coming, what is happening, and what is coming? We probably don't do a lot of legwork there in organizations as much as we should.
Yeah, I think that's a stunning point. I think that's a massive part of this understanding. What are these skills of the future?
Right.
What is it? And if we don't know the actual skills, what are the foundation skills that people can build on? I suppose, and I think part of this as well is unrealistic expectations. We want someone who has all of these skills, and it's like, well, that doesn't exist, or there are very few people who do that. So yeah, I think it's this kind of rigid thinking, and yeah, it's an interesting time, but yeah, complaining about it isn't isn't going to fix it.
No.
Absolutely right. Let's move on to the third one. Okay, again, not surprising. So, how to retain burnt out frontline workers, 3 strategies for managers. So this is a survey. I won't share all the stats of the survey, but basically, it was made. I think it was specifically Gen Z frontline employees, and it was about dissatisfaction with employee experience, negative interactions with fellow workers and managers, and kind of worsening mental health as part of that. The article very helpfully said that employers and managers should focus on appreciating people more flexibility in terms of how people work and shifts and what they can do and all that kind of stuff, and then decreasing the inequity between frontline workers and other workers in the organization. So, it was an interesting article, and I can't, you might disagree, but I can't really take fault in those kind of approaches. But there's a bit about all of this stuff where I just think we kind of lose some of the way that humans function when it comes to wellness and stress and all of those kind of things. And I think that perhaps employers need to be kind of more appreciative of how the human body and the human brain works, and can we create environments that actually people can thrive and perform brilliantly because they have less stress, they're able to get enough sleep, there aren't toxic people talking to them, all those kind of things. Am I painting a picture of utopia there, or is that reasonable? What do you think?
I mean, that's where we have to go, and it's like what we've spoken about in other episodes. It's Gen Z is helping with this, but it's really the power dynamic is changing, and I don't think it's like going a whole other way, but it's balancing it out. It's truly a relationship, and I think companies really everything would benefit from having more gratitude, but we have to do away with this mentality of like we company, you need us because that's not how it works. We both need each other. So yes, show gratitude, treat people like humans, have the flexibility, all of this. It's like, it's been years. There's so much evidence of how this helps you and your bottom line. Why are we still having this conversation is what I think when I see things like that.
John, Burnout, what's your take? What should
Yeah, I
employers be
mean, I
doing?
think, listen, being a frontline worker is not easy. And I think what it means in different industries, right, can really be heightened as well. So, in the same way that this article comes out and is sort of um, trying to lift up those that are being almost abused in these roles that they have, we have to remember that the same people who are writing this article are the ones who are complaining in the restaurant because I see open tables. Why can't I just sit there? It's because there's
Yeah.
not enough staff because they're beat up by people like you. And so you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth and expect there to be parity. I think it's everyone has to take a step back. I love the gratitude perspective for sure, but we also have to be thoughtful of what is the real way that we're going to go forward. A Cosmo quiz response of 3 strategies for managers is probably not the way to go. And if I get added by Forbes, so be it. But this can't be what we continue to sort of feed practitioners to say, this is the answer, everyone. Just follow these 3 steps and life will be good. It's much deeper than that.
No, absolutely, and it's kind of like this kind of simple playbook solution stuff for really complicated issue. I mean, it's a really complex system that's causing this, as you say. Not enough staff, customer
Right.
expectations, all of these kind of things. It's not, and yeah, I agree. It's just not helpful to to kind of put this stuff out there
Right.
necessarily. I think it's it's more nuanced, and it's just important. It's going to continue to happen, I think, unless
Agreed.
people look at the bigger picture. Indeed. So it's quite the situation. And on that note, let's move on to the Situation Room. See, I'm bravely trying to finish this.
I am not Jocelyn, and I
You're not
saw.
Jocelyn,
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm not, but we
Yeah,
love Jocelyn.
absolutely.
As I shared or at the onset of the broadcast, we are going to talk a bit about where to go when you've got something you need to discuss, complain about, go a bit deeper with, in regards to your leadership, and the person you have to go to is the same person. And what do you do? And this particular article that we have here is a thread from Reddit, and actually specifically here, which I do think is interesting. It is in context a Canadian employer, and so what is it like to do this in Canada? And I think one of the things to be thoughtful of, right, when you look at situations like this, is what makes sense. The majority of businesses are run as kind of small business. So the person that's at the head of the organization might be the business owner, might be the manager, might be the communication specialist, might be the HR representative, all of those things. And you're an employee and you've got an issue. Do I worry about going to my supervisor who sits as HR to talk about it and balance that with what if I lose my job because I talk about this right, with this person. And that has happened. I don't know, Matt, in your experience, but I mean, I've worked for small businesses where that's, the
Yeah.
owner of
Oh,
the business is
100%. Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and they don't always like it when you sit with them and say, I just want to talk to you as X, not Y.
Yeah.
Listen to me as an employee, not as a supervisee, because you're going to get really defensive about it. That's hard. Human
Mm.
nature, that would be really difficult to do. In this particular instance, the person wanted to complain because this supervisor is sharing personal information about other employees, is sharing medical related information with other employees because of the spot that they sit in. And so, what do you do with that? How do you handle that? Is it a conflict of interest? And I think that what everybody should know is no, mostly no.
Mm.
Conflict of interest, really, obviously, in the business world has got a completely different context.
Yeah.
But if you only have so many personnel in an organization, right, someone is going to wear more than one hat, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I think the interesting thing with this as well is that it's the kind of the head of operations is also the head of HR, but there's a CEO kind of sort of
Right,
separate
somewhere out
to
there.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
I suppose on the flip side of this, if you're advising an organization that's kind of scaling like that, so it's not just an owner kind of operator.
right.
They're building out a team, but the HR role is being shared with operations or whatever. How do they kind of make sure that they've got those kind of escalation things in process, or there is a way that people can escalate stuff to the CEO, or is
Yeah.
that just not something that they should do?
No, they absolutely should do it. And of
Yeah.
course, the let me be a good HR person. The first thing you should do is have a very clear employee handbook, right? So there should be this
Yeah.
sort of clarity around how you escalate things, to your point, and to identify the fact that should a particular incident involve someone that you're supposed to escalate to, here's your workaround for that. It's not uncommon. It's very natural to have something like that in a documented area, which is normally your employee handbook. If you don't have something like that, you may want to generally make that recommendation so that there isn't any awkwardness for anybody who's involved. Um, but you also have to know, and in Canada, just like in the United States, and I know in the UK, there are government agencies that ultimately, if you have to go to
Yeah.
say, I can't
Yeah.
bring up what I have to bring up with my superior because it's also the business owner or part of a family business or whatever it might be. Um, the government always gives you outlets to have that initial go to for things that you feel like are protected and that are being ignored. You can always do that. I always recommend, though, try to keep it in house. That's why the clarity in the handbook is going to be best practice.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose as a final point to that, I've seen people who founded companies. They kind of scale their team. There's 2 or 3 of them in a room, then there's 10 of them, all that kind of stuff. And very often they don't think about HR and employee handbooks until they've got a crisis.
Correct.
And then they're kind of running around trying to find consultants, all this kind of stuff. So you should really think of it when you've got any employees.
Way in advance. Do it proactively as opposed to reactively. Your staff will receive it much better as well. It's not like, oh my gosh, this is the cover your butt manual. Nope. Nope. We're coming at this from a completely different vantage point. And you should really approach it that way. And the other thing I want to make sure I mention is it's never a great idea to share medical information. I don't care what level in the organization you're in, even if it's a colleague and that person, as this article talks about, someone's out because they have shingles. That person may not want you to walk around and say, yep, Mike's not here today. He got shingles bad. Oh my gosh, you should see it. Probably not a
Exactly.
great idea.
Not at all. Yeah, not at all. John, thank you very much for joining me. And now we have a guest for me to talk to. Hey,
Hello.
Amanda, are you there?
I am.
I
How are
can hear
you?
you, but I can't see you.
Oh no,
I
we
think
have
your
a
camera's
problem.
off.
Let's try this again, friends.
No
There
worries.
we
There you
go.
go. Hey. Hi. Well, nice to meet you and welcome to the show.
Nice to meet you as well. Thanks so much for having me on.
A pleasure. So first up, can you introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do?
Sure. So I'm Amanda Thompson Buffington. I'm one of the co-founders and managing partners at Hopely Marketing Group. We're a full service recruitment marketing and advertising agency.
Fantastic. So to start with, talk us through what do you think the kind of the biggest challenges employers are going to kind of face in 2025 when it comes to recruitment marketing and talent attraction?
Yeah, so I was just listening into the conversation, and there's some definite themes with the need for learning and development and upskilling. Certainly, all of our clients are always looking for more qualified candidates, and there seems to be a big gap there in skill set and what's out there and who's applying to these roles. Some other themes, the well-being and the beyond the office and hybrid. We're seeing 75% of most survey respondents, their companies have gone hybrid. So there's a lot of themes here, right? How do we stay connected to our team members when we're hybrid and not in the office? And we're all used to that now, right? And then I think it's the human experiences, right? The human experiences in a really automated world that we live in is going to be more and more important to get those quality candidates.
Yeah, that's really interesting actually, because we're kind of, particularly in marketing, kind of surrounded by tech, by kind of all these kind of things. And how do employers get that human side across? How do they kind of get that empathy and that emotional connection in their recruitment marketing when so much of it seems to be kind of automated and cookie cutter and all those kind of things?
Well, I think it's telling your story in a really authentic way. That's never going to go out of style. I think I've been talking about this for a majority of my career, is really telling your story in a really authentic, meaningful way. What makes you unique, right? Telling a little bit about the bad, the expectations. We've all seen, results from our clients that are putting the time into telling their employee stories and putting it out there for the world to see.
No, absolutely. And you kind of mentioned that you've sort of been telling that story for a long time. How have you seen recruitment marketing evolve over the last few years? What are the kind of changes? What do people need to sort of be aware of when they're thinking about their recruitment marketing strategy for 2025?
Well, I think it's really four main areas that you have to focus on, right? You've got to have the right strategy, the team, the process. You have to have the right story. So your brand, telling the right story is hugely important. And your tech. I mean, we've all seen, horrible tech implementations really kind of sink a recruitment team. So having that tech implemented properly and working well is super important. And then kind of that fourth leg of the table, if you will, is the advertising piece, right? You have to be really targeted these days to get your message in front of the right people at the right time. And all four of those quadrants that I just mentioned, the strategy, the brand, the storytelling, the tech, and the advertising, there's no solution in a box that's going to help you with all four of those things, right? So all four of those legs need to kind of be even. Otherwise, you've got this really wonky table and you're constantly trying to fold napkins and shove it underneath the short leg, right? So it's really important for all of those things to work together. And it's truly no solution in a box that's going to do that. And I really will go back to the authentic, human connection, and the storytelling is really crucial. Even after someone has applied, they've read the stories, they've been able to view some videos online about this potential new role. Then you really have to talk to them. They've got to have that human connection throughout the process of engagement. Otherwise, they're gonna walk.
It seems to me that a big part of being able to do that is really understanding your target audience, kind of really understanding what it is that's gonna kind of motivate them to apply, to want to work there, to thrive in that job. Do you think employers do enough work around that in terms of understanding the audiences of talent that they're targeting, and what could they do to do that better?
I think that the good ones are really paying close attention to this. I know we've probably heard a lot in the last few years around personas and candidate personas and how important that is. And it's true. You have to know your target audience before you want to speak to them. Who are you trying to attract? And then once you know who that is, then where are they? And what message can you get in front of them at the right place at the right time?
And technology makes that kind of easier or more possible than it's ever been, doesn't it?
It really does. There's so many great tools out there to help you with video, to help you, kind of augment your tech stack where their gaps may be. But I think it's also really important to talk about, not having all these different siloed systems out. Everything has to be integrated and talking to each other. Otherwise, it's antiquated.
No, absolutely. I think particularly with marketing, there are so many point solutions that you can kind of have. Even in my own business, I appear to have about 10 just to do stuff, and it does get it gets very confusing from a workflow perspective, if nothing else. So so what about, I suppose, digging into that technology bit a little bit deeper? AI in recruitment marketing. To me, there are obviously some obvious obvious use cases. Are we living in a world where potentially everyone's marketing looks the same because they're using the same AI and the same way of generating it?
Well, and that's the trick, right? I think people can tell when they see it. It just all looks the same, right? It could just be insert company name here. It looks generic. And if you're look, AI is great to help craft a message, but you have to edit it. It has to have that human voice. You have to give it those personal stories to connect it. And I do think that impersonal automation, when it's not talking to me as an individual, it is going to be ignored, right? I feel like candidates, they can tell, they're not super excited about chatting with chatbots all the time. They want to talk to a real person.
No, 100%. And I think also I think the generative AI, if it's going to improve job descriptions by a bit, and fantastic. But it's still, so many employers seem to still rely on, job postings as their recruitment marketing. They're not really a place to kind of sell your brand or have that engagement, are they?
No, but unfortunately, oftentimes it's the first place candidates may view your brand before deciding to apply for a job. And oftentimes it's the very last thing they see before they're going to apply to a job at your organization. So it really is important to have solid job descriptions, job postings that tell about what it's really like to work in that role. They really are powerful tools, and you have to have those. All the job boards out there, you can't post a video instead of a job posting, right? So, they still are something that's necessary, and they have to be well done. But yeah, I think it's really more telling that story in the local market, understanding the differences between recruiting in Texas versus California versus Lisbon, right? You have to tell those local stories about what it's like to work in that office, if you will, for candidates to really want to go through the process.
And what's the best bit of recruitment kind of communications or marketing that you've seen in the last sort of 12 months or so? And it could be, work that you've done or work that you've seen. What's kind of really caught your eye as being effective or standing out?
There's so many, but I think some of the most impactful are going to be with the interview process and just helping. I feel like a lot of companies have very disparate recruitment processes and what questions they're asking and things like that. And there are some great tools out there that can help with, creating that better applicant experience and keeping those candidates engaged throughout the process. And obviously the CRM tools out there, I'm loving the recipes, if you will, the way that you can set up these systems ahead of time and to do the work for you, but you do have to set them up properly. And that's usually the kicker.
No, yeah, 100%. And I suppose just to kind of move on to branding. Do you think? I mean, employer brand's gone through a bit of a kind of a rough patch over the last 2 years with lots of layoffs, lots of cuts, all those kind of things. Do you think employers understand the value of employer branding at the moment?
I think some do. The ones that are going to succeed they're the ones that are using it properly. And I think EVP, we've talked about it for so many years, and I feel like EVP is this big nebulous thing that it's not the actual messaging, right? That's not the tagline or the anchor line that's going on a job ad. So the EVP is not as important as the way you activate it and tell the stories about the EVP.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. And do you think that when it comes to recruitment marketing and branding, employers are tracking it properly, really understanding the value, linking that to the outcomes that they want? Because that's always been an issue in the past. Is that situation improving with technology and AI?
I think that it has improved with some of the technology and AI, and it's just, unfortunately, with a lot of the attribution models we have, is that last touch attribution that's typically getting credit, if you will, for an applicant or a lead in a CRM. And it is tough to measure, right? Where did this candidate really come from? Where did they first experience our employer brand? They may touch a company's brand 15 to 20 times before they actually apply. So we are seeing an increase and lift in general whenever we're doing the more brand awareness focused campaigns and complement to applicant driving strategies. And we see a big lift even on what companies are getting organically when we do these things. So it really does truly impact. And there are some measurements, right? You can certainly measure quality of applications. A good a good employer brand is going to have people opt out that may not be the right fit. So really, it truly is that measure of the quality applications and how long they're sticking around once they're hired.
So a last question for you, either get your crystal ball out or just think about, how you'd like things to be. What would you like the future of recruitment marketing to look like? If you could sort of design the perfect recruitment marketing that we were talking about in sort of 2 years' time, what would that entail?
Gosh, if only I had that crystal ball. I really do think it's just the speed to connect the right people with the right opportunity. I mean, I think that is just key to what we do. And it is the feel good thing. It's why I've been in recruitment marketing and employer branding for 20 years. It's a feel good thing to connect people to the right opportunity. You're helping a business and you're helping a person at the same time. And if I could build a platform that could do this, it would get people to the right place to get their questions answered quickly, and then allow them to talk to a human as quickly as possible if they are the right quality candidate, and then get them to a hiring manager as quickly as possible. I mean, it really
Fantastic.
truly is about speed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Speed and engagement, and that kind of human empathy and emotion and interaction and all those kind of great things. Amanda, thank you very much for talking to us.
My pleasure.
We are going to move on to trending or ending. Hey, Rhona, how you doing?
I'm doing great. So today, like I said, we're talking about this new-ish concept where like Motorola just released a body cam, but it's targeted towards retail workers, right? And like frontline workers in retail, healthcare, and things like that. Basically, it has the ability for the person wearing it, like around their neck, to hit a button, and with that, it starts recording. And it can also like alert security and management. So like an escalation of like, okay, someone's stealing or someone's being rude or something like that, and you hit record. Look, on the surface, it sounds like, oh, this is for the safety of the employee. But my thing is like, are we truly empowering frontline employees, or are we asking too much? Because yes, there's definitely benefits, right? You have immediate access to a security team. You get capturing the details and what really happened, what really went down in real time. And yeah, for HR teams, for legal teams, for like the company, they don't only have whatever the customer is posting online about the incident, they actually have a recording. But here's the thing, most of this is, or the way they presented it in the article, is because of the retail theft and how it's grown and all of that. So now we're asking a frontline worker, which we know mostly are entry level employees, don't have a ton of experience, aren't trained in conflict resolution or conflict handling. And we're asking them to put a target on themselves, because now you're wearing this around your neck and someone's in here stealing, and you press this thing and start recording. The natural thing is the person doesn't want to be recorded breaking the law. They're going to try to take that off of your neck, push you, kick you. They are retail workers. They thought they were gonna do customer service and show you around and answer questions. They didn't sign up to work in loss prevention. So that's my thing. I think it's asking too much. Now, if a company is going to do something like this, I think that they need to really rethink what the job description is of this frontline employee. And of course, when we rethink job descriptions, we rethink training and support that they get. Because if they're truly going to be a loss prevention person, they should get the exact same training, the exact same tools, and the exact same added salary to what they're already also expected to do. Um,
Mm.
and without clear policies and training and like the focus being on protecting the employee, there are also going to be people who are thinking, why do I have to hit record for this? Why do I have to wear? It's just, it really could backfire if things are not clear. And then the article said that this is widely used in the UK, and I definitely wanna hear about your thoughts on that, Matt. But for me, is this trending or ending? I really hope it's ending, and I really hope companies do what they should do, which is hire more loss prevention people or people specifically trained to do this, and then, yes, give those people these tools, but not the frontline worker. What do you think, Matt?
So first of all, I read the article and I just the bit where it's like they use this in the UK for retail. It's not true. Basically, it's not true. So the body cameras like this are used in the UK in situations where there is likely to be, almost guaranteed conflict. So people who go into people's houses to repossess property, for example, will wear these body cams, partly for their own safety and partly for evidence in court that they said the right things and did the right things. And they are trained to do that. And it's almost expected that they would do it. Revenue protection officers, as they now call ticket inspectors on trains, sometimes wear them, again, because there can be conflict in those situations. And it's like, we can look at this in court and we can do all these kind of things. People do not wear them in frontline retail. That just does not happen. So I think that's it. That's incredibly misleading. I agree with everything that you said. And also, the environments that I've described, we're very often talking about environments that don't have CCTV, don't have any other kind of surveillance going on. And, that's not the case in kind of, well, presumably all retail environments these days. So it kind of makes no sense from that perspective. I think, again, you're almost promoting conflict by people having these, where do you draw the line? Did you go into a restaurant and the person serving you at the table is wearing one of these in case there's an argument or something? It's just kind of crazy. But I think the other aspect to it as well is about employee surveillance and privacy, because if you're already looking at a premises with CCTV, why do you need something that's going to record people face to face? And the scope of the abuse of this in terms of snooping on employees or reporting conversations and all those kind of things, I think that's enormous as well, don't you?
Yeah, it's just, it feels like it could be so easily abused that, like I said, without clear policies of how this is to be used and what support there is, it's not a good idea. And I think really there will be a lot more like liability. They were even saying like healthcare workers could use it. It's like, absolutely not. Can you imagine like recording healthcare information? It's just a problem waiting to happen. And again, are employees really going to trust? Because the second you use it the wrong way, now you've lost all of your employees wanting to use it. And remember, this is something where they have to press for it to record. I just
Mm.
think the solution to the retail theft problem, which is huge. I mean, I've been in stores where someone has come and done the theft. It's like, it's a shocking thing where everyone just stands there and it's like, oh my gosh, they just steal. But I think that's better, because I think if some person were to turn on a camera and start recording a crime happening, it's just opening yourself up for conflict.
Yeah, absolutely. And with regards to this trending or ending, unfortunately, I think it's trending because I think that this kind of, we already kind of live in this surveillance culture where people are constantly filming things with their phones. And Meta, our friends from earlier in the show, they've got Ray-Bans with with cameras in them. I can just see this kind of escalating. I can just see that everything gets kind of recorded in the end. So yeah, I think that, unfortunately, I think that's trending. Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. I just hope that with this trend comes responsibility. And then we don't forget, like I said, this is a whole other job. This is loss prevention. This is not a frontline retail worker's responsibility. It really isn't.
No, absolutely. I completely agree. So let's hope it's ending. So Rhona, thank you very much for talking to me. Very much
Thank
for
you.
joining me
See
on
you
that.
next week.
Absolutely. Okay, so thank you for joining us on this episode of the Alder Hour. Lots more content coming up on Purple Acorn all week. You can tune into the HR Morning Show Tuesday mornings, 7 a.m. Pacific, midday Eastern. Hire Her, a Talent Collective podcast on Wednesdays, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. My First Job with Mike Wood, every Thursday. Really enjoying watching those. Again, same times. And then From the Desk with Jada Montemurano, which is on Fridays at 11 a.m. or 12 p.m., depending where you live. And of course, please join us next Monday for another episode of the Alder Hour. And also check out this as a podcast on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. It has been great having you watch us. This is Matt Alder, clocking out.